we have Dr. Manas to talk to us about the surgical aspects of neuromodulation. Manas?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Paresh. And I thank Dr. Reddy Labs for organizing this event. I saw that the only surgeon is Dr. Paresh. So I'll not be talking much on the surgical aspect, but rather on decision making when we get a patient of drug-resistant epilepsy. What is the best? Let me start with telling which is the terminology, neuromodulation or neurostimulation, which is the correct terminology. Is it stimulation or modulation? Now, what does modulation mean? It means it's a physiological process. It's not that artificially we do by putting a VNS or DNS, where we stimulate a neuron, where it secretes neurotransmitter to regulate multiple neurons. So in a body, we have many neuromodulators, and all of us know that dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, histamine, norepinephrine are the major neuromodulators, and they have specific influence in separate different parts of the body, and that is why these neuromodulators are used in treatment, either a chemical neuromodulation or electrical neuromodulation. Especially it is done in Parkinson's or psychiatric disease in medical neuromodulation, and now it has come to epilepsy. Now there is a difference of a neuromodulation in a chemical and how the anti-epileptics act. In anti-epileptics, most of them act like a synaptic transmissions. It's from one neuron to one neuron, so they act faster. Whereas in neuromodulation, the neurotransmitter released by the presynaptic neuron, they excite multiple neurons. So the effect is like is non-specific, and it takes delayed. So as Dr. Rajesh was explaining, that in neuromodulation, the effectiveness increases over a period of time. It is better as the time grows up. Like the incidence of seizure frequency reduction is more at 5 years rather than at 1 year. So there are two forms of neuromodulation. One is an intrinsic neuromodulation, which happens naturally, or an extrinsic. Now this can be done with medicines or by electrical stimulation. So what I'll be talking is neuromodulation by electrical stimulation by different methodology. So what does the mechanism of action, either VNS or DBS, is not very clear, but the proposed mechanism is whenever the vagal nerve is stimulated, it works through the neuromodulators secreting serotonin, norepinephrine, and that causes glutamate excitotoxicity, and then in turn reduces the excitotoxicity of the neurons. Similarly, it can also stimulate the sphenopalatine ganglion and increase the cerebral blood flow. So these are the different mechanisms that, in addition to reducing excitotoxicity, increases cerebral blood flow, it increases neurotransmitter expression, as well as causes neurogenesis. Whereas DBS, which is not like a peripheral nerve stimulation like VNS, it's stimulating a nuclei in the brain, either in RNS or DBS, where it stimulates a nuclei in the brain. They have different mechanisms. It does stops by antidromic transmission. It stops the response from the neuron, as well as it causes stimulation of the afferent and efferent, excitatory afferent and inhibitory afferent to the neuron, as well as it increases the blood flow by working through the microglia. So there are like there are like 7 mechanisms, where proposed mechanisms, how DBS helps in suppressing the excitotoxicity. Though DBS has been approved, the last one to approve, as Dr. Rajesh said, it was approved in 2018. RNS was approved in 2013, and VNS in 1997. But the earliest one to be identified, that the anterior thalamic nucleus is the nucleus to be stimulated to have seizure frequency, was done long ago in 1970. But it took almost 45 years to come to clinical use after the scientific trial in 2010. That DBS has come in 2019, 18. But we have data of VNS from 1997. There are different methods of neuromodulation. It can be invasive versus non-invasive, as Dr. Rajesh said. But it can work in divided into different mechanisms. It can be an open loop or a closed loop. In an open loop, we have a stimulator and we have an output. So there is no control on what is the output. It's always a fixed output, like what we do in a DBS. VNS, the older type of VNS, was an open loop where it did not have a control on what is the output. Whereas the newer VNS with the Aspire one, it detects the heart rate, and then senses, and then it controls the output. What is the output? So whenever if you have a closed loop, that is better than an open loop. So VNS with a closed loop is probably better than just an open loop, what we work in a DBS. But then what we are looking for is a smart neuromodulation. It's not only a closed loop, but if we can add artificial intelligence, as we heard a lecture on machine learning, if every time that the software can learn that if every time they give a response, what is the requirement? So it's not that you have a specific type of output every time there is a seizure, but this should respond differentially depending on the requirement. Then that will be the ideal neuromodulation, and that is not come. We are still waiting to get a smart neuromodulator. So how do you decide what is the scope of neuromodulation? As we know that of all the drug-resistant epilepsy, when we evaluate, 30% probably go for surgery, but 70% are not appropriate for surgery. So if one center is doing 100 epilepsy resective surgeries, that center probably should be doing 200 neuromodulation surgery, but there is a big treatment gap because the neuromodulation therapies are more expensive. So instead of doing 2 times, probably we do 2%. So very few experience of neuromodulation. And it's not all the time that we decide for a patient this decision that a patient needs VNS or DBS. Many times one has to use a combination therapy, like a VNS fails, one has to go for DBS, add DBS or RNS, depending on the patient's symptom. Where the patient has a generalized seizure, VNS is the first option, as it is an extracranial procedure. But when you have a focal seizure, if it's non-localized, again VNS or DBS is the choice. But if it's localized, it depends on the number of foci. If it's less than 2 foci, one RNS will be the first choice. If it's more than 2 foci, then RNS cannot be done. One has to think of doing a VNS or DBS. But as I explained you, if VNS fails, one has to think of RNS, or if resection fails, one again has to think of VNS. So it's not that a one-stop solution that if you do VNS, that is enough. So if VNS, one has to explain the patient that there are multiple options, that if this doesn't work, you probably have to go for multiple neuromodulation procedures. I'll tell a few slides on our experience on the VNS, what you have done with Dr. Sita Jayalakshmi, who heads our epileptology unit. In the past, we had done 18 patients. We had a follow-up of almost 4 years. All of them had pre-surgical evaluation, and there was non-localized. The surgery is similar to endarterectomy. It takes approximately 1 hour. It's done under general anesthesia, and the duration of stay in the hospital is 1 day. One has to make an incision, one in the neck in the supraclavicular area, and one below the infraclavicular area for the pacemaker to be placed. Then identify the carotid sheath. One can identify the vagus nerve either in between the carotid artery and the internal jugular vein, or deflect the jugular vein and look for the vagus nerve behind the jugular vein. We follow identifying the jugular vein and looking behind the jugular vein. This is the jugular vein and this is the vagal nerve, and usually we select on the left side. We have done cases for hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy and multilobar MCD, and the other ideal cases are bilateral MTS. Other indications has been already explained to by Dr. Rajesh. Now this is the summary of the cases. What we can see here is we had cases who had no change to a 90% reduction of seizure frequency. But the overall, there is a 50%. If you take the mean, there's a 50% seizure frequency reduction in the 18 cases we have done. Now, it doesn't come without any complications. It comes with complication of 2% incidence of hematoma, infection, the biggest complication is the change in the voice and sometimes the change in the heart rhythm. The only advantage of VNS over DBS and RNS is that it can be done in children age as young as 4 years, whereas DBS and RNS is recommended for adults more than 18 years. Unfortunately, in children also 40% of them respond, and in adults 50 to 60% respond. DBS in epilepsy, we do not have experience. Dr. Paresh has experience, but the target was identified. Professor Irving Cooper, he had identified that antenucleus of thalamus, which is a part of bypass circuit, can be used as stimulating as a target for disrupting the seizures. In addition to thalamus, one can use subthalamus, one can use hippocampus, cerebellum, and cortex. But the most common accepted target has been antenucleus of thalamus, which was again confirmed by scientific trial, and which has been already, the results has been already discussed by my previous speaker. As you can see here, the reduction of seizure frequency in first year is 56%. By 2 years, in the first year is 40%, second year is 56%, and by 5 years it is 69%, which is quite a good seizure freedom. But the major complication is memory impairment, which is in 27% of cases. The other invasive procedure is RNS, the responsive nerve stimulation. It's a good method, but it's expensive, but it can be done only if you have a localized focus, like 1 or 2 loci are known. If you have a bilateral MTS, one can put 2 electrodes, so 2 depth electrode and 1 subdural electrode to pick up the early detection of seizures, so that it works like a closed loop system. So responsive nerve stimulation is also has been studied and was published in 2011, and the effectiveness is as good as DBS, but it's more expensive and it's more invasive. Dr. Dhananjay, who works with me, and he had done a fellowship in US, and these are the pictures of his experience of RNS. In RNS, it's more cosmetic because the pacemaker is placed under the scalp rather than infraclavicular area, so it's covered under the hair. So cosmetically, it is good, but then it's not available in India. So this is the slide which Dr. Dhananjay had done in US. The depth electrode, so there is a subdural electrode and a depth electrode. If it's a bilateral MTS, the depth electrode is placed in the hippocampus, or if it's a generalized seizure, the depth electrode can be placed in the antenuclei of thalamus or in the central median nucleus. The efficacy similarly as all neuromodulation, it increases over a period of time, like 40% in first year, 53% in 2 years, 60% in 3 years, and 66% in 6 years. In addition to these invasive procedures, there are non-invasive like transcranial stimulation. Like Dr. Rajesh said that the stimulation of the transcranial stimulation VNS, one can do a transcranial stimulation of with a transcranial magnetic which is non-invasive, especially for patients who are not fit for surgery, and this can be done. There are no RCTs comparing the 3 modalities of treatment, but then if you compare all the 3, the VNS has the least side effect and easy to implant, and it can be done both for children and adults, whereas DBS can be done and RNS can be done only for adults. The most complex procedure is RNS, the intermediate is DBS. The seizure frequency reduction is 50% in VNS, 75% at 7 years in DBS, 66% at 6 years in RNS. So this too looks better promising, but then VNS, whenever we have a choice of a generalized seizure, probably VNS, because it's less complex surgery and less complication, one can use VNS, and if it fails, probably then one can think of doing a DBS. And if it's in a generalized epilepsy, and if it's a focal, probably RNS can be thought of. So in conclusion, for pharmacological epilepsy, neurostimulation offers a good treatment strategy. While most of the devices require surgical implantation, they provide a significant added seizure reduction without the side effect of medication. In the previous session, we discussed a lot of the side effects of different medical medications. So most of the time, we only think of complications of surgery, but the complications of medicines are far higher than just surgery itself. The advantage is that efficacy of devices improve over years. So one has to have do the patient counseling properly, that they have to have the patients, and the treating physician also have to have the patients. The choice of device depends on the type of epilepsy, whether it is focal or generalized seizure, and the age of the patient. Thank you for your attention.